and Luther King Jr. fought for equal rights for African Americans. He achieved his goals not through violence, but with peaceful protests. Sitting down for Dr. King was inspired by the true story of the lunch counter sit-ins of 1960. The sit-in started on February 1st, 1960, when 4 African American college students, inspired by Dr. King, peacefully protests walked into a Woolworth's department store in Greensboro, North Carolina, and sat at the lunch counter. Only 4 days after the sit-in began, 300 students participated in the peaceful protest. The sit-ins sparked protests throughout the southern states. Today, the Greensboro sit-ins are remembered as an important event in American history.
My name is David Richardson. I grew up in a small town in North Carolina.
And I'm Mary James. I grew up in the same small town in North Carolina.
When I was a kid, my mom would sometimes take us to Woolworths for a special treat. We'd sit on the seats at the counter. Woolworths was one of the many large 5 and dime department store chains. With lunch counters, you could sit there and have something to eat.
My mother took my sister and me to Woolworths to go shopping, but we weren't allowed to sit at the counter. No one in my family could sit at the counter back in 1960.
That time in American history is what this play is about.
You see, even though David and I grew up in the same small town, we
did not know each other black in 1960.
The South was segregated.
And that meant in the eyes of the law in South, that African Americans and white people were not equal.
And in our day-to-day lives, that meant that as an African American, I couldn't go to the same school as white children. There were so many rules back then. I couldn't drink from the same water fountain or use the same restrooms as the white people either.
There were signs all over our town that told people they could and could not go. You'll see big signs that read whites only.
That was just the way life was. It wasn't easy. We weren't happy about it, and we knew it wasn't fair. But we also knew that every day Martin Luther King was fighting for change and equal rights for African Americans. And when I say fight for change, I don't mean violent fighting. Dr. King led peaceful marches. He believed we could peacefully change the segregated South.
I did not really take notice of the segregated town we lived in, and I definitely did not know about Dr. King. I did not really understand what Dr. King stood for until my mother took us to Woolworths in February 1960, and my life started to change.
Everyone's life started to change.
I was 12 years old back then in 1960. I wasn't called David back then. I was called Davy.
Why, look at that girl eat. That's right. We like some of that famous strawberry shortcake too. Pardon me for asking, ma'am, but why is that? So we don't plan on leaving until we get served. Why are you sitting at the counter if you don't want to eat?
We returned to Woolworths 2 days later. When we got there, we saw a whole crowd of black people right in front of the counter.
It was a protest. My brother Clark was one of the protesters.
I did not really understand what a protest was, but I did not care.
You just wanted a piece of that delicious strawberry shortcake.
I most certainly did. So I went right up to the counter to get a seat. Emily's right. All the seats are taken.
Where are we gonna sit, Mom? Looks like there's another fuss going on. I think we should postpone our celebration.
But you said we could come here today.
You promised Davy, Mom. I know I did, but if there aren't any seats open, we can't stay, can we?
Can't we wait a little while, please?
I don't think that's sensible. Let's go, children.
I bet if the waitress sees us, she'll find us a seat.
Folks! Folks! Hey! Attention, please! I just talked with Mr. Wilkins, the store manager, and he told me to close now. So that's it, folks. We're closing early today. You have to go home now. I guess that answers our question. Let's go. Come along.
No, wait, excuse me, ma'am. You know us, right?
Oh, well, of course. I know you. You're the Nicholson family.
See? Mom.
Davy was hoping if he could get a piece of strawberry shortcake today. Oh, no. There's no strawberry shortcake today. I'm under strict orders from the manager to close down right now, son. Mr. Wilkin never closes early, but he doesn't want any trouble.
Well, we're in no trouble. Can't we just go get some strawberry shortcake before you close?
Sorry, no, not today.
But
Davy, you heard the lady. They're closing, and it's time for us to go. We'll try again tomorrow. Well, let's hope we're back in business tomorrow. Yes, let's hope so. Come along, children.
it's not fair, Mom. It's just not fair.
It's just not fair. No truer words were spoken. Of course, you were talking about not getting a piece of strawberry shortcake, while the protesters were talking about not getting equal treatment.
But I did not understand what the protesters were doing. At least not yet.
Shh! Don't ruin the end of the story. It's a fine ending.
Oh, sorry. Well, I was still angry about not getting to eat strawberry shortcake. I walked home way ahead of my mother and sister. I stomped up our porch steps and walked inside our house and slammed the screen door.
What's all the door slamming about?
I think we're mad. No cake for us.
We went back to Woolworth's for some shortcake, but they would not serve us.
There was a whole crowd of black people refusing to get up from the counter until they were served.
They took all the seats, so the waitress could not serve anyone.
And then the waitress called the manager of the store.
And he told the waitress to just close up early.
My.
All this fuss because of a group of black people want to sit at the lunch counter and have some strawberry shortcake.
I heard all about it on the radio. But the announcer didn't call it a fuss, Davy. He called it a protest. Mother, let's not talk about protesters with the children. It was on the radio, Doris. Surely you don't want to hide the history in the making from your children.
Really, on the radio?
It's big news, Emily. Not just in our town, but all over the country.
Why? What's the big deal about that old lunch counter anyways? I don't see why black people want to sit there. They just can go eat other places.
That's
Literally.
what the waitress told the men at the counter.
Yes, it's true there are other places for them to go, but that's not really the point.
Well, I guess I don't get the point, Grandma.
Then I'll explain it to you. It's important that you understand what's happening and why it's happening. The black people at the lunch counter are college students from North Carolina's Agriculture and Technology School, and they are having a sit-in.
What's a sit-in?
Mother, I don't think this is an appropriate topic for the kids. Don't be silly, Doris. The children need to understand what's going on right under their noses.
What is a sit-in exactly?
The protesters are sitting at the lunch counter and refusing to move. It's a nonviolent protest. That means the people who are protesting are peaceful.
I guess that it's a good thing that they're being peaceful, but what good is it doing? They're not getting served, and now we're not getting served either. Everybody's unhappy.
I agree with Davy. I understand how hard it is for black people. But all they're doing is making things difficult for the rest of us. Be honest, Mother, other than messing up our afternoon, what can a handful of protesters expect to accomplish? A revolution, and it's high time for it, I say. A revolution?
Why is it time to shake up the world?
Because the way black people are treated in the South isn't fair.
But everyone gets along okay, just as things are, Grandma.
That doesn't mean it's right. What if a law said that no one wearing glasses should be seated at the lunch counter? Would that be fair to you and others who wear glasses?
Well, I guess I would go somewhere where they allowed people wearing glasses.
But how would you feel? How would you feel being told you weren't good enough to sit at the lunch counter? Weren't good enough to vote, or use the same washroom, or attend the same schools?
I would feel pretty bad, I guess.
Well, I would feel sad too.
Yes, so would I. Well, imagine how these black students feel. They're told every day they aren't good enough to go places white people go. And they're tired of it. You honestly think a few college students can change the world? Why not? Rosa Parks was one woman down in Montgomery, Alabama, and she started a revolution by refusing to give up her seat to a white person on the bus. She helped start the civil rights movement. Is a revolution a good thing?
We learned that word at school. A revolution brings about change.
That's right, David. And things are definitely changing. In the past few years, a man named Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. has been leading Black people on marches for freedom. Dr. King has been telling Black folks not to buy things and not to go places where they are treated unfairly. And now, at the lunch counter in our town, a group of college students are doing the work of Dr. King by having a sit-in to change things. It's not about eating shortcake. It's about Black people gaining the right to go places and do things that white people can do.
I understood what Grandma said, but then we went back to Woolworth's the next afternoon. I was secretly hoping the protest would be over, but there were even more Black people crowded around the lunch counter than there had been before. What I said is next is not a moment I'm proud of.
But it all worked out in the end.
You'll spoil the story.
Oh, sorry. You're right. We should let the audience find out what happens.
Yes, and they'll soon see that I behaved like a spoiled brat. Why don't you all just go home? You know they're not going to serve you, right?
David, be polite.
All we wanted was some strawberry shortcake, but we're not getting it because of you!
So, you want some of that famous strawberry shortcake? Do you? Well, so do we. See? We are so different. Our skin color may not be the same, but we both want the same thing, some strawberry shortcake and a place to sit down. What's so wrong about that?
Listen up, fella. Listen here. You need to get up now. My son needs this seat now.
I'm sorry. This seat is taken.
Where do you come off talking to me that way? You don't even belong here. Huh? Can't you read? The sign says whites only.
I'm a paying customer, just like anybody else.
Paying customer, huh? You think you're so smart? Well, pay for this. Hey, Marge! What that spilled sugar cost him?
Leave it be, Maxshore.
I guess you did not hear me the first time, fella. Fun's over. My son needs this seat. Now.
Isn't anyone gonna help him?
I said get up now!
Wow, did you just pour sugar on me? Listen, mister, I don't want any trouble.
Then get out of my seat!
Really?
You want to take a swing at me? Come on, get up and take a swing at me. Huh? back up. That's enough! Break it up, you! Get off that seat and you're coming with me. You're under arrest. Put your hands behind your back and get on the ground. Come, you're coming with me.
He didn't do anything. You should arrest those men. They pushed him down.
Hush now, Emily. Think they'll treat Rick okay? No. Think he'll spend all night in jail? Davy, come off that seat right now. Let's go. Don't make him go, Mrs. Nicholson. I finally have a paying customer. You want the usual, kiddo?
No, ma'am.
Don't you want some strawberry shortcake like you had the other day?
No, sir, not yet.
Why are you sitting at the counter if you don't want to eat?
I guess, well, I did not like what those two men did to your friend. It wasn't right what they did.
No, it wasn't right. Well, honey, you came all the way down here. You must want something.
No, at least not yet. Not until everyone here at the lunch counter can get the usual. I'll be waiting along with everyone else. I don't mind. I heard what you said the other day. All I want is some strawberry shortcake and a place to sit down. I want help to make it happen.
Thank you. So do I, son. So do I.
And now Edward is grown and married, having children of his own.
So you can see why that time in 1960 changed my life. Dr. King's ideas changed the way I thought about things.
And those ideas changed the world we live in.
And I believe those ideas have made the world a better place.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.